Yeah. Oh yeah, I agree. Oh yeah, we agree. Yeah. We didn't work with Kevin Clash for the very first time until just this past year
on the Happy Time Murder.
We auditioned with him in 1999, and the first time we worked together was in 2017.
So you never know if the seed you're planting is switchgrass or an oak tree. Is it going to be fast growing and then mowed down, or is it going to be a slow growing oak that will provide you lots of shade?
Welcome back to Puppeteers. I'm your host, Adam Krutinger, and we have Cameron Garrity back again as our co-host.
Hey, everybody.
And today we have Sean and Patrick of Swazzle. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks
we
so
are
much for being
twins.
here.
We'll answer all of our questions in unison.
Perfect.
Right.
And the people listening in the car will just hear it as one continuous sound.
Me and Cameron
one weird voice that seems to somehow overlap itself.
Yes, Sean will be in speaker left, and Patrick will be in speaker right.
That's great. Yeah, me and Cameron are also twins as well, actually. You know, just like
the
Danny
similarity.
Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. What was that one called?
Twins.
Twins called Twins.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, as a twin,
I'm the Danny DeVito, just so you know.
Yeah.
as a twin, you're required to know all that information.
That's right.
Understood.
Oh, I believe it.
It comes with the manual.
Yeah.
So, guys, congratulations on Kidding.
Oh, thank
That
you.
is going. This is such an awesome show. I'm watching. I just can't get enough of it.
Have you been watching?
Yes.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How is that? How to talk about it?
Okay. Well, first of all, the show, for those of you who might not be familiar, Kidding is a new Showtime series. It's some episodes are directed by Michel Gondry, who people might know from Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, a beautiful artistic movie. It stars Jim Carrey, who everybody should know. And on the show, Jim Carrey plays Mr. Pickles. He is the host of a puppet show, and we made the puppets for the puppet show and performed many of them as well.
Yeah, Kidding was a really fun project. It came about, we worked with the producer, Sarah Kaplan, on an episode of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. I don't know if you see that show, but there was an episode where a bunch of cats sing a crazy song.
As cats do. It's on YouTube. Google it.
And so we were brought in as part of the Puppeteer team. I sort of served as the liaison with the producers to kind of coordinate all the nuts and bolts, the kind of things that a non-puppet show would need to know when using puppets. And so I was brought in for that. And then we worked with Sarah on that. And then when she was producing Kidding, she reached out to us about building characters, as well as James Hayes, who's an extremely talented builder, and he built the large walk-around characters for Kidding. So he built the horse and the otter and the giant Oops, who hasn't been in his full form yet, but you'll see what he does eventually.
Coming up.
And then we built the hand puppets for the show. We built the secret chef,
Ukulele, Sigh the Fly, Ennui la Triste.
And then we puppeteered a bunch of the characters as well.
Yeah, so the cool thing about the project is, I mean, if you're a puppeteer, and any puppeteers listening, this might ring true, which is sometimes people might be under the misconception that puppeteers get jobs from auditions. I hear that happens. I've never booked anything from an audition. Have you?
No, auditions are just ways to demoralize puppeteers.
That's right. And because first of all, you don't get any, and then you don't get anything from it. Anyway, just putting that
it's
out
a double-edged sword.
Hashtag real talk.
Yeah. You know what, though? I wonder if that's kind of, I wonder if shows see it more as like a production thing, and that's probably why. It's like they don't audition lighting designers and things like that. They just get recommendations and see quality of people's work, and that's how they probably view puppetry.
You know this most likely from your puppetry experience and from talking to puppeteers, which is the puppetry community is a community. And when people are seeking puppets, they all know that guy or that gal. Oh, you know what? Everyone has their puppeteer friend. Or you're making connections. So anytime you work on a show, you're making connections, and people go, oh, who are those puppet people? I mean, literally, Kidding came to us because we worked with the producer on another show. And that seems to be, the natural way that these jobs happen. Now, the super stressful but also incredible part about working on Kidding is that many of the puppets that we were making, Jim Carrey performed, which was kind of like nerve-wracking.
Oh my God, I can't imagine.
but it also made the project so meaningful, because it's not always you don't always have the opportunity as a puppet builder to make something for someone who is so talented and so knowledgeable. And I just feel that a guy like Jim Carrey, because of his, because he did the Grinch with a full body makeup, because he did these large than life physical performances, he was really able to take to the puppetry.
Yeah.
He also, as would be expected, gave us lots of notes because he was going to be handling these puppets. But I always tell people this, because sometimes you do client work and you're doing stuff for a commercial client, let's say. And a lot of times commercial clients like to give notes because they feel like it's their job. Like, oh no, can we see what it looks like if it's orange? Well, this was always going to be purple. And I'm just wondering, can we just play?
Frankly, I'm bored. I think I'd like to see it orange.
I've got a position to justify. The cool thing about the notes that we were given from Jim Carrey is every single note made the puppet better, made it easier to operate, streamlined it. So I was just impressed that his notes were really great. And it's because of that interaction that we had with the director, with the writer, with the star, and that back and forth collaboration that the puppets even came out as neat as they did.
What we love most about the show, and this is something that anyone who works on puppet stuff knows, I think people think of puppets sort of the same way. We think, oh, I know what a puppet is. It's it's a Muppet style puppet or whatever. And there are those type of moving mouth puppets in the show. But what's cool about this show is they had puppet street cred at the very beginning of the show. Dave Holstein, who is the creator of the show, knew that he was going to be creating a kids show within the context of this adult drama. And so he thought this kids show has to be legit. And so he brought in
Joey Mazzarino.
Yeah, Joey Mazzarino of Sesame Street, great writer, great director, great puppeteer. And it's funny, we had our very first meeting with the team on his very last day. So we met him for the first time, like, hey, we'll be working together. He's like, yep, I'm leaving town. We're like, oh, great.
Oh, wow.
But we could
I'm like,
tell.
nice to meet you. Goodbye.
Goodbye. But we could tell just by reading the script, we're like, they know puppets. Like there were things written in there that says, Deirdre, who's Catherine Keener's character, Deirdre, right hands, soap scum. Thought, well, they wrote right hands into the script. So we felt like we were in a very safe place with good people who understood puppets. And also what's so satisfying and gratifying about this show is the people that created the show don't think of puppets in one way. You have Michel Gondry, who has this really incredible imagination. You have the great writing team with their crazy ideas. And so the puppets, not one puppet was a traditional type of puppet as you would imagine. The most traditional puppet might be the secret chef, and he looks like a hand puppet, but instead of a moving mouth, he's got a trigger that operates his mustache, and his mustache moves, and he doesn't have any eyes and doesn't have a mouth. So, there's a piece of bread that's a rod puppet. There's a giant foot, which we made, which you'll see later.
I think that's, well, depending on when you air this, check out episode 5. I think that's when, because I saw it in the coming soon.
So anyway, and the way the creative process worked was, Michel Gondry would have a notion based on what came out of the script, and he would give us this sort of Michel Gondry-esque sketch, and that would then go to the art department. And
right.
then Maxwell, who was the head of the art department, he would take this and he would turn it into, well, this has to be real, and kind of give it to us. And then we'd take it and we go, or he'd give it to Jim Carrey, and Jim Carrey would say, actually, I think this eye should be like this, blah, blah, blah. So by the time we got these designs, they'd been through 3 extremely creative minds, and then we take it and go, let's put our stamp on it and try to make it work and function in the real world. And then and also we were free to propose ideas too. This idea of a talking heart. There was an episode 4.
Yeah. Thump.
Yeah.
That was a character.
Thump.
They had an idea about what it was going to be, and it was sort of moving through some different notions. And then I ended up just doing up some quick Photoshop sketches and saying, I think we can make a heart and still make it look cute and make it look realistic. And that was a sort of collaboration on everyone's part.
And what was so also meaningful about working on this show is we've had high profile projects before. Years ago, we worked with the Kyoto brothers, and we made puppet versions of The Simpsons. In that same year, what a crazy year it was, 2010, way back in time. We also made puppets for the Pee Wee Herman show, which went to Broadway on a limited run. And what you're doing is you're doing your best to replicate work that has already come before. The most amazing part about, one of the most amazing things about working on Kidding is we got to have the first draft of these puppets. So we got to use our own instincts. In fact, when I see a puppet like Cy the Fly, which I built, it looks like a puppet that I would make. And I see Secret Chef, which Patrick made, it looks like a puppet that he would make. I also want to give a shout out to our team, because none of this is done with just the two of us. We brought in other puppet builders to work on this. Artie Esposito, fantastic puppeteer and puppet builder. He made Ennui la Triste, which is the French baguette.
And then Greg Ballora, who's an incredible builder and does the most intuitive mechs. He built the mech for Ennui. And
then Melissa Doss, who some of you may remember from being a finalist in Jim Henson's Creature Shop Challenge. She did all the work on Thump Thump. So she sculpted, cast, painted. And then we commissioned a company that we are good friends with in the Bay Area called Images in Motion. And they actually ran the foam. It's like this super soft foam that they're able to run. So they did that. And then we also, as we had to crew up, we ended up, we brought in
untold numbers of people when it came to building that giant foot.
Yeah, the giant foot. Carla Rudy, Tammy Miller,
Amanda Maddock.
Yeah, so that was an all hands on deck situation. But as you know, none of this is just made, by one or two people. It takes a whole team of people. And then they have these amazing puppeteers. We're fortunate enough to get to puppeteer, but Mike Quinn, you should interview him. Interview Mike Quinn. He will talk about Star Wars.
Good.
He'll be great.
Yeah, Dan Garza, Christian Anderson, and then some other folks. Mary Faber, who it's funny, I happened to work with. I perform Lenny for the Lending Tree commercials, which I don't know if you guys have seen those, but we could talk about it later at some point. But
wait, don't say we'll talk about it later unless we actually do. I'm going to write it down because one of my peeves about podcasts
when
is
we'll get to that
I'll
later.
talk about it later, and they go, "You never did mention." I'm actually going to just write it.
No, edit those out.
You're writing it down too.
Oh, good. Yeah. So I actually worked with her. She was a human actor in one of the Lending Tree commercials. She's a mom. And she's driving her fake kid to school or whatever, the bank or whatever it is, to get a loan. And so when we saw each other on set, it's like, wait a minute, we've worked together before. So once again, puppets proving it's a very small world. And they had, anyway, the whole crew of people, incredible actors.
I mean, it's A-list across the board.
Yeah.
I'm watching the show now, and we would read the scripts, and the scripts were beautiful, and they were funny, and they were moving. One script in particular that's coming up, and it's a puppet that we've created that's coming up, and I don't know how it's going to come together, but boy, it was so beautiful. The script was so moving. The shooting on the day was so moving, and all of us are there. And afterwards, after we shot it, I remember Jim Carrey turned to everyone and said, this is all that matters right here. What's happened in this room. Everything else is just extra. I'm really looking forward to that moment happening a couple episodes from now. I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah, that was a fun day. That was the day we were shooting the scene, which was really great. It may have aired by the time this episode airs. And Mike Quinn, who is a big Hollywood movie buff. He loves old movies. He loves old Hollywood history. And he goes up to Jim Carrey and he says, this soundstage that we're in, we shot at Sony. He said, this is the very soundstage when it was MGM, where Ray Bolger shot the dancing scene of the Scarecrow in Wizard of Oz. Jim Carrey was like, he was, really sort of taken aback, and he actually recounted the story at the cruise screening.
He said Ray Bolger. He's like one of my favorite.
He's all man, and he said we're a part of this history. Like this is that event. This is we all kind of felt like a part of this. I hope it's good. Otherwise, this is going to sound.
It's going to be. I mean, It's beautiful. Here's what I've noticed about the show. They're making all the right choices. Like they're striking a very interesting balance. It's technically a comedy, but it's really a drama. And I remember speaking to the creator writer about it, and we're pretty much saying it's like life, and that's what That's what they're going for. There's some funny parts. There's some sad parts. There's some surprising parts.
It seems very much to the speed of what Jim Carrey's been all about lately. Because I saw his documentary come out maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And it seems very much in the spirit of that, in a way, of kind of like his philosophy on
Yeah. You know, it's
he's a producer on this as well, right?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking about him as well, a lot of people, when we say worked on Kitty, they go, "Oh, what's it like to work with Jim Carrey?"
Yeah.
And maybe because they saw that documentary. And I saw the documentary the night before our first fitting, which I shouldn't have done. Sort of scared myself. I'm like, oh no. I would say we've had the good fortune to work with a lot of very famous people: Katy Perry, Paul Rubens. You know, it's a good list. I'm very
We've had the benefit of the good fortune of working with people that we grew up watching as kids, which is really exciting,
odd and cool.
Yeah.
But as far as celebrities, I mean, I feel like he's the most famous. You know, who would be more famous? Tom Hanks? I don't know. But when we did our first fitting, which was at his house, instantly he put us at ease. Like, he was just, "Hi, how are you? I'm Jim. This is beautiful. Oh, wow, this is so nice. Let's try it out. Oh, here are some thoughts and ideas." And I just felt at ease. And in general, all of the days that we had working with him were kind of beautiful and memorable. And he is a hard-working actor. I mean, he was doing some emotional stuff. And then the director would say, "Great, let's do it again." I'm like, "Oh my God, he's got another one in the tank." So, and after we would shoot stuff, he was always good about coming around to all the puppeteers and saying, "Hey, great job, thank you." Hey, he would shake everyone's hand and say, "Look us in the eye," and say, "Thank you." So it just made the whole experience very meaningful and very beautiful. And I actually feel like that feeling comes through on the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to say one more thing about Kidding. The show points to their authenticity that they're going for, which is the set department was tasked with creating the workshop set. So Deirdre, Catherine Keener, is the puppet builder for the Kidding. You know, she makes all the puppets on the show, supposedly. You know, her character does.
Right.
And so they wanted to have a workshop set. And so they actually came to our workshop. The set department came and they photographed our workshop. They looked at, the tools on the desk, the hand tools, the this, that, and the other. And then when we went to set to view the workshop, it was like, oh my gosh, I could pick up a glue gun and start working.
Yeah, someone could have told us this is the puppet workshop for the show, not like a set. We'd be like, oh, good. You have a place to dye fabric. It just felt so legit. The other thing we did as we were building puppets, because we have to create this history of a show that doesn't exist, is we would have bags that we kept at our workshop table, and any scrap that we'd cut from making the pickles or making the whatever would go into the bag, and we would bring that to the set department, or they'd come and pick it up. And as I watch the show now, I see oh, that material, they scattered all of our workshop garbage and ephemera and scrap all around their set to really decorate it and make it feel like the materials that you see the puppets made out of are also sprinkled throughout the whole show, which is really cool.
Right.
And also, they have the puppets that we made. They're also on big photographs in the hallway. So I'm like, oh my gosh, our puppets are everywhere. It's so fun.
Actually, the most fun day, the first sort of big day was the photo day, because they had to create a history for the show. This show has always been on, and so they had everyone there, all the casting crew taking family photos, all the photos you see on the desk and on the shelf and stuff like that. Which is also interesting. The thing about the show is rarely do we get a chance to work with so many departments. We're working directly with the writers and the designers and the set team and the actors and the producers and prop department. There was so many departments that we would sort of float in and out of, which puppets tend to do usually, but this was a rare opportunity for us.
I will say, this is something I like to say about puppetry, is I feel like puppetry is the backstage pass to the world, because it floats in so many different disciplines. Because it floats in so many different disciplines, it can land you at the Grammys. It can land you in a feature film,
or it can land you at the bottom of a hole in the ground, and you wonder how you got down there.
Yeah, a literal hole in the ground.
Inside a couch. Yeah.
Inside a couch. I've been so many couches.
Yeah. So the photo day was really fun, and that was a day where they needed to create history, and so we had, along with building custom puppets for the show, they needed to kind of round out this world. James Hayes, who built the larger characters, he provided them with tons of like costumes and stuff. He did costumes for, I think it was
Dinosaurs,
but also Puzzle Place.
Oh yeah, Puzzle Place. That's right.
And so all the patterns that you see, all the crazy costumes you see in their costume shop, those are all Puzzle Place.
And they're legit puppet patterns.
Yeah, Puzzle Place costumes. And so we have a bunch of puppets that we rented to the set department, and they're, they just put them up on stands and put them on piles and put them on things.
We're talking like we're going through boxes and just pulling out old puppets that we've had lying around, and then they just like rented a whole lot of them, so they're all kind of sprinkled throughout the show. So
and on the photo day, they had this, where they wanted to make, Jim Carrey's the star of the show, and so they had him standing there, and they were like, let's surround him with puppets. They had this photo of a classic, and maybe it was a Jim Henson photo, like kind of recreating this, and so us and the set team and Tomas, the puppet wrangler, we all put 2 or 3 puppets on and put them around him, and they snapped a picture of it. And as I was walking around the set one day, I saw that photo made to be on a newspaper article, posted on a bulletin board on the set. And I thought, I want to get a copy of that, because it's Jim Carrey surrounded by not only some new puppets we built for the show, but a bunch of our old puppets that we've done at library puppet shows from like 15 years ago. So
yeah. So
That's
anyway, it's a beautiful show. It's a fun show. It was an amazing experience. I hope we get to do more of this.
Yeah.
We made some of the most complex puppets for that show. We made the biggest thing we've ever made on that show. And it was a really great experience.
Yeah, it's been so much fun to watch, and I'm excited that you said about creating the history of the show. That was something Adam and I were talking about before we got online with you, was wondering about, you look at a show like Sesame, for instance, and you kind of point to different characters and say, okay, that's a Don Celine, that's a Michael Frith,
right.
or even something like, okay, I know that one came from the 70s, but this one's clearly an aughts puppet. Were you guys thinking about that kind of stuff too, or was that something that they were talking about with you guys?
They were thinking about it.
Yeah.
And that speaks to their attention to detail. They wanted the show to feel like a real show. And so you have that ukulele, which is, that's his character. That's Mr. Pickle's character. Everybody knows ukulele, but ukulele looks different than Side of the Fly. But somehow in their differences, they all kind of look like a real show. Because when you look like a real puppet show, people go like, oh, the Muppets, the Muppets, they'll look the same. You go, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Just look at the core characters. Kermit the Frog has eyes like nobody else, and he's just a fleece sock. Miss Piggy is all sculpted and flocked and complex. Gonzo is snip foam and has a weird nose, and Fozzie is fur. What do you mean? But yet they all work as a family.
Yeah. For example, one of the puppets that James Hayes built was Soap Scum, the character that you see in the bathtub. And the idea that he was sort of kind of working under as he was constructing it was, they made this in the 70s. They made it with cereals, fur that was available, and stuff like that. And then when I think about some of the newer characters that are yet to appear, those are ones being made now. And so they're gonna have a different level of visual quality. They're gonna look like, and it is sort of a hodgepodge and visually, but that's why it works.
Yeah.
And that's why it feels like a legitimate
feels
show.
like an actual real show.
And some of these puppets have been around since the 70s, and some of them I built last week.
And they couldn't have been more kind to us. They actually let us do a little PR piece for the show, and they brought in their Showtime PR cameras, and they talked to us in their puppet workshop set, and we got to talk through all the puppets. And
what's fun about this
I was
show?
going to mention that too, because when you were talking before, because in that video, didn't you mention about how Jim Carrey and stuff made ideas for changes and stuff?
Oh yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. It's the same thing I said before, which is he contributed good notes and feedback, which it made the puppets what they are. It improved the puppets. It made us better puppet builders, and it gave him better puppets.
Right. Yeah. And it probably helped. And this is just a small part. Obviously, he's immensely talented. But I think about the idea that like he was around the Sesame set a number of times. Like, so he's probably able to pull from, seeing Jim Henson and Frank Oz back, in the 80s and stuff when he was, still a kid practically. And he's
like
that reference.
Like my guess is that I don't know anything about his, Sesame connection, except maybe as a guest star. But I just know that in all of his films, whether he's being stuffed in foam latex makeup head to toe, or he's, doing broad physical comedy or, crazy characters, he understands that physicality, or whether it's, the Batman, movie where he's the Riddler, like, handling a prop and a cane. Like he knows, he practices, and it shows.
I think it's part of his stand-up comedy too, because he's such an observer of people. Because he'd always do impressions and stuff.
Yeah.
So he's really used to seeing how things and people move, and I think that's an element of it as well.
We also noticed that he was doing what regular puppeteers do
Right.
between takes, is fiddling with the puppet between takes. Sometimes, maybe people who aren't, puppeteers, they might go, oh, bring the hell, oh, I can rest. But you'll notice that puppeteers are like, they're always like goofing around, they're trying new things, they're always workshopping. And I felt like that's what he was doing. He was always like fiddling and workshopping and trying and
trying to get specific movements and stuff. The little weird thump thump boom boom thing. That was something he was very intent on having, a nice flexible. And he would play with the characters when cameras aren't rolling.
If people want to watch the show, kidding, it's on Showtime. I don't have Showtime, but I got the app, a Showtime app. It's $11 a month. It's great. Get the Showtime app. And if you're a big Survivor fan like me, you can get the CBS app and then get the Showtime app for a discount. Ooh. So there you go.
Yeah, I don't
Sean does not even get a cut of that.
Hot tip. I don't get a cut of that, but anyone who knows me knows I'm a Survivor fan. I've seen every episode since the beginning.
added it on as an extension from my Amazon account, my Amazon Prime account. So that's why I did. I added on. I think it was only like $8, maybe $11 for the Showtime through Amazon. Yeah,
but it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt.
So this is a great, hearing some of the more recent stuff that you're doing. We'd love to kind of go back to the beginning a little bit. Obviously, you guys have known each other for quite a while.
It's been 41 long years.
It's been 41 long years for us too.
Feels like it.
But how'd you get started in puppetry?
That's a great question. How did we get started in puppetry?
I'm sure you've never heard it before.
No, I have heard it before, but I've got a good answer for you.
Perfect.
So the answer is this. We got started in puppetry because there was nothing else we wanted to do. I'll tell you, when we were kids, we had a lot of interest, like a lot of young people do. We loved Disney animation. We loved, Star Wars, of course. We loved the Muppets and Sesame Street. And when we were very, very young, there was an incredible special about the making of the Muppet Show, in the Navy, that whole thing of Muppets and Men.
Yeah.
And our parents thought, well, this will be fun. We'll show it to the boys. They like Muppets and stuff. And they showed us that little behind the scenes thing. And that's the first time we saw puppeteers operating puppets. We had never really seen that before. We didn't even think about that, I guess. And apparently, according to our mother, we were very upset. We cried. And she thought, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? And
we couldn't believe that they weren't real.
Yeah, we thought they must be real. These must be characters.
You mean they're not real? Afterwards, we were just silent. And you mean they're not real? Parents were like, no. And then we said, not even Kermit?
And so that sort of led us down a path of, our parents explained us that, they said, well, it's they didn't know what to say. It's trick photography. And then from there, we kind of began an interest in trick photography. So we learned everything we could about, we loved ILM. We used to pour over the old ILM books. We loved behind the scenes stuff, making of Dark Crystal and things like that kind of opened the door. But it wasn't really until we were in junior high, 1990. The year is familiar to anyone who loves puppets and the Muppets. The terrible year, the year that Jim Henson died. And
we were 13 years old. We had just really become aware of him. I mean, my parents' generation, was aware of him because he was on the Ed Sullivan Show and making these appearances. And we became aware of him through a little known show, which anyone listening to this who has any interest in puppetry should seek out, look for episodes on YouTube, which is the Jim Henson Hour. It's very weird. It's very interesting. It's like everything that Jim Henson was interested in this period of time is on that show.
Right.
And we really became aware of him. We became aware that someone was making all of this stuff. And it just so happens that someone did Sesame Street, did the Muppets, and then did all these other interesting creative things. And then, this would be your Puppeteers moment, he passed away. And I feel like that's a Puppeteers moment that all puppeteers share. And for us, it was a very sad experience. I felt like someone that we were just starting to know, whose work that we really loved, was suddenly just taken from us.
And this is something, Adam, you're an art teacher. I think you might appreciate this story. But we were distraught, and then, like every good junior high kid, then sent to school the next day. Raw nerves. Already we're in junior high. That's bad enough. And now this emotional experience that we were still sort of processing hit us. And both Sean and I were very upset. We were in different classes at the time, and somehow the school counselor decided that it would be best if we spent some time in our art class. We had an amazing art teacher, Audrey Brown. Miss Brown is her name. She was one of those teachers people talk about at the Oscars. You know, I want to thank my art teacher. And the art teachers, these people do make a difference in people's lives, and she made a difference in ours. She knew that we were emotional, we were upset, and she said, you know, sometimes when someone whose work you like, someone you respect dies, some of their stardust falls down on you. And she said, maybe we can work on an art project that sort of reflects how you guys are feeling. Okay. And so she put us in a corner on a little table in her art room, and she said, just try drawing a picture maybe of how you guys. So we drew this. Now to look at it, it's a very sad drawing. I mean, I don't mean sad isn't bad. It's actually pretty good, but it's sad as an emotional, where it's all the Muppet characters for the span of Jim Henson's life, you know, weeping and crying, says, you know, someday we'll find it, the Rainbow Connection. And we drew that. And that was sort of our first sort of creative, work after his death. And I feel like his passing sort of somehow inspired us to make some of our own stuff. We also then started building our own sock puppets just out of whatever we could find. You know, we didn't know how to build puppets. We didn't know anything about this stuff. We knew what we saw, and we knew what we liked in books and stuff. And so our parents, who are great, super, they're creative, but also they're very kind and giving,
Very
and supportive.
Sometimes too supportive.
Yeah, that's true. They're our #1 fans. But they kind of gave us a corner of the garage, and that became our little workbench. And that was in 1990. Up until 1990 to 1993, we were just building puppets out of whatever we could build puppets out of. We didn't know what we were doing.
You know, set your mind back. This is pre-internet. There is no information. You would have to go to the library and get a book about puppetry. Now, we were fortunate that in Oakland, there's a puppet theater called Children's Fairyland in Oakland, and it's an institution. I mean, anyone who grew up in the Bay Area has been to Children's Fairyland. And one of the main puppeteers there, Randall Metz, was doing a show at the local library, as you know, lots of puppeteers do shows at libraries. So we went to that show, and afterwards, we were the kids going up, wanted to see Backstage, wanted to see the puppets. And he was very gracious. He showed us all the puppets, let us look backstage, and then encouraged us to attend a guild meeting. Now, one thing I always tell anyone interested in starting out in puppetry, anyone any age, join your local guild.
Your Puppeteers of America guild.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So there's
your local steel workers guild.
So the I guess so the Puppeteers of America, you know, national organization, which we learned about, and then it just so happened there was a guild meeting very soon after the show that we had seen, and so we went to the meeting. It was at the San Leandro Main Library, where we grew up.
San Leandro, East Bay, representing.
And we're from the Bay Area originally, up in Northern California.
San Francisco Bay Area for anyone outside of California.
That's true. We just call it the Bay Area.
The Bay Area.
Only one bay?
The Bay. The area around the Bay.
Obviously.
East Bay.
Anyway, so our first meeting was at the San Leandro Main Library. And in our first meeting, it's indelible in my mind. I remember it was an upstairs room. We met so many cool people. Lee Armstrong, Camila Portuguese, Mike Wick, Mike Osnowitz, who was Frank Oz's father, Letty Schubert. These people, so many of them we've had a chance to work with over the years as well, and some of them have passed away. But the organization, the group was so supportive, and Mike Osnowitz, Frank Oz's father, was always excited about new young people being involved in the puppetry arts. And he told us, he said, I can't do a Dutch accent, but he said, you got to go to the festival. You got to go to a festival. Like, what's the festival? What does that mean? Well, no, there's a national festival, Puppeteers Festival. It just so happened that year, the National Puppeteer Festival was Puppetry 93, and it was at San Francisco State, which is close to where we live. And so he said, you got to go to a festival and you got to see everything, stuff you like, stuff you don't like.
And I sort of like to describe it this way. Going to the festival, I don't know if people have had this experience, but I've had this experience where you remember days that they're not just standout days, but like the light is different. Like it's you just know it's special. And I just remember so vividly going to this festival and having that experience. Everything that we saw, every workshop that we sat in on, every performance that we watched, I feel like I could almost remember it verbatim, like I'm describing a movie I've seen. And I sort of feel like that's like the green lights that you follow. When you have those experiences, you're open to those experiences and you keep following that green light.
At that festival, Letty Schubert, who was in charge of a lot of things, including the volunteer program, she put us you'll be volunteers in the puppet exhibit. It was very exciting.
Yes.
Because there were puppets, this crazy goat that I remember, all these other characters, we still have photos of them. But the puppets that we were in charge of guarding, I think they just gave us a job. I don't think there really was an exhibit guard.
They knew
they had live ones. And but they had several of the puppets from the land of Gorch from SNL on display, original characters there.
The Mighty Favog.
Yeah, Mighty Favog was there, and Whis and some of the other ones. And we would just stare at those puppets all day, looking at them.
Those were real.
Yeah,
those were
real live Muppets. Real live Muppets.
They were big too, weren't they?
No, they're small.
No, they're
Were they
small.
small?
All
Yeah.
small.
That's one thing. That's one thing that a lot of people misunderstand about puppets is how small they really
Yeah,
are.
the Mighty Favog
Yeah.
is, I mean, maybe that big,
Yeah.
maybe a little bigger, but he's everything's smaller than you would imagine. And then also at that festival, we attended a foam building puppet workshop. Lee Armstrong, Camila Portuguese, Mike Wick from Images in Motion. And then we attended also from Lee and Camila, they had a monitor puppeteering workshop. And those two workshops are what like kind of locked in for us. We came home from the festival with a list of materials that
we need
would
foam, we need glue,
Yeah.
we need we need the garage.
Exactly. And so we started building our first puppet show. The shows we had done before, we would do things for the rec department. We would do little things for story time at the library. We thought, let's build our own show. And so we built the show, The Wizard of Oz. We built all the characters and would perform it together. And that really began performing shows at libraries, which is a journey that we've been on since 1993. In fact, only this year in 2018 is the first year that we have not done puppet shows for libraries during the summer. We finally decided.
Did we graduate?
Yeah.
Have you graduated?
Can we get off the merry-go-round?
Can we? Maybe we'll be back. We'll be
Yeah.
back in our 80s. We're back. Remember us? We're new again.
Then from there, it's all a blur.
No, I mean, look. From there, we did lots of shows at libraries. The other big moment for us was making the decision to move down to Los Angeles. And when you move from the Bay Area, that's a big decision because people in the Bay Area, look, I don't want to tell tales out of school, right? People in the Bay Area don't have the fondest opinion of LA. I mean, like, you're probably hearing this from me for the first time.
Well, the joke is this. People in San Francisco don't like Los Angeles. People in Los Angeles don't even think about San Francisco.
And that's the sad truth, San Francisco. Anyway, we moved in LA in 2000, which was, it was awesome. We moved down in the middle of a writer's strike and just in time for 9/11. So that was an odd time to try to start. Now, luckily, our goal was to try to get involved in film and television. And it's not luck. What I always encourage people to do is do your own thing. And that's what we've always done. We've always done our own thing, starting when we were very young up until now. We have a workshop. We have a workshop not because of commission builds, which are wonderful and fun, and we love them. We have a workshop because the garage was too small and we needed space to make another show. So
everything that we've done, that we've had an opportunity to do in our career, whether it's working on Muppet films or TV shows or commercials or
Jon Favreau's The Jungle Book, all that stuff is really born out of us committing to doing our own work and not doing it alone.
Right.
I always feel like the lesson of the Muppet movie and the lesson of the Muppets is find your weirdos. Find your weirdos.
I found mine right here.
These are the people that you are going to move through this puppetry experience.
The lovers, the dreamers, and me. You need all the lovers and the dreamers. You can't do it with just me.
Yeah, that song wouldn't work with just me.
So, and we've been very lucky. When we knew we had to be involved in a Puppeteers Guild, and that was sort of our first tribe. And now we sort of have our own company, and that's sort of become our second tribe. Now people come to us the way we used to go to the guild, and they say, how do I do this? One thing I will say, and I've said this a couple of times, it's sort of sarcastic, but not really, which is if someone were to ask me, I want to be a puppeteer, what do I do? How do I become a puppeteer? The answer I would say to you is, I have no idea. Because we never set out to be a puppeteer. We are inspired by the works of Jim Henson, and we knew he wasn't just a puppeteer. He was a creator of worlds. And so what I say is, if you want to be a puppeteer, and that's what you want to do, if you want to be a dancer, if you want to be a mime, if you want to do whatever you want to do, then create something that incorporates that. So we created puppet shows, and we also did puppeteers. But by the way, puppeteered, if we had decided, we could have very easily gone into the art department and worked on sets. We could have, done music editing. We could have done visual effects. There's so many things that puppetry is sort of its theater in miniature. And so when people say they want to be a puppeteer, I think that's great. But the first person that needs to hire you, it better be yourself. And if you can't hire yourself, then how do you expect other people to hire you?
One lesson that we've learned, especially being in LA, is it's not like there's a producer on every street corner looking to hire puppeteers.
Right.
The year is not 1990. Puppeteers are not used in every. There was an era where puppets, if there was a commercial with a talking hamburger, it was a puppet. If there was a movie that had a lizard, there was a puppeteer involved. And that is not now. So one of my pieces of advice that I always give to puppeteers starting out is make your own work, make your own shows, make your own puppets, and do your own thing. Doing your own thing does a couple things. One, it attracts work to you. Two, it sharpens your skills. And three, it makes you more appealing to other people looking to hire puppeteers. What you don't want is, oh, what have you been doing? Just waiting for the phone to ring. Okay. We're never waiting for the phone to ring. We're like, sometimes the phone's ringing, I'm like, how annoying. Hello. Okay, I've got stuff to work on.
In fact, to that point, as far as waiting for the phone to ring, when was that Sesame Street workshop that we did? The one that we came down to Burbank? Was it 99 or something like that?
99.
So there are these storied, legendary Sesame workshops that happen every so many years. And we were very fortunate to participate in one. It was in Burbank. It was being led by Kevin Clash. And we drove down. We were in the Bay Area at the time. We drove down to LA, auditioned nervously. We made it through the cattle call, and we did the mirror thing, hand up, count to 10. We made it through that. And then we participated in a week-long workshop. And amazing. I mean, amazing. Here we are working with Kevin Clash. He has Elmo. We met Bill Beretta there. We didn't realize it at the time, but he was also there for the first day of vetting people. And also a lot of people that we knew were in the class. A lot of new people we know now were participating in it. And that was really great. And at the end, Kevin pulled us aside, as well as one other performer. And he said, hey, Johnson, help me put chairs away. I'm like, oh, okay. We're chairs away.
You know, since we're Eagle Scouts, we're more than happy to put chairs away.
Exactly. So we're putting chairs away. And then once everyone left, he tells us, I want to tell you guys, listen, you guys are great. You know, you're someone that we would call in, not just to be a right hand, or maybe we could give you even a background character or something like that. And we're like, oh, cool. And so we thought, our Sesame Street career has begun. Ta-da. Now, here's the thing. So that happened, right? That happened. Now it was in 1999. Had we decided to stop, well, we'll just wait for the phone to ring because, you know, this is going to happen. We'd still be waiting for the phone to ring because we didn't work with Kevin Clash for the very first time until just this past year.
On the Happy Time Murders.
So, but of course he knows who we are. We've known him for the years. We've worked on sort of side projects. He's aware of our work, and we're of course aware of his work. But I was thinking, we auditioned with him in 1999, and the first time we worked together was in 2017.
So you never know if the seed you're planting is switchgrass or an oak tree. Mm-hmm. Is it going to be fast growing and then mowed down, or is it going to be a slow growing oak that will provide you lots of shade? And Artie often jokes that I make up a lot of analogies, and we should write them in a book. That's I just made that up.
That was a good one. In fact, you should use that as the intro that you use for your show. You know.
Hey, something real quick.
Yeah.
So you guys obviously sort of came up as a unit. You clearly have worked together. But did you find as you were coming along that you guys had specific strengths, that one person was able to like really write scripts and build sets versus someone had a real strength for character design? Was there sort of a division of jobs, or how did that work?
Yes. To answer your question, yes. We both built, we both performed, but when it comes to the business number crunching stuff, that tends to fall to me.
And then when it comes to the complete opposite of that, which is designing characters, that comes to me. I don't know why. I've always drawn, always had a little notepad, always done crazy characters and stuff. If you see the stuff we're doing recently on Inktober, it'll be long since gone when this is airing, but those are all my little drawings that I do. I design characters when we do client work. I've done some designs for Henson's Creature Shop. So I do the designs and Sean does business stuff. Other than that, though, we both perform and we both build. I'm sure one of us is better at one or the other, but I don't know.
Oh, you're definitely. Patrick is stronger at the designing. So when we
design, but I mean,
for building
and performing.
Oh. No, we both.
You guys don't have to pick sides.
Oh no, we're
just duke it out. Put the gloves on.
Careful, when twins pick sides, it's always against somebody else.
That's right. That, you know what? This is gonna sound dumb, but my other piece of advice for people is, this is a weird way to say it, get a twin, because that doesn't have to be your actual twin. It could be just an ally, because, you know, Bert without Ernie is just Bert, right? And sometimes we sort of forget how much kind of strength and power that gives us by being a unit. It gives you, like, let's put it this way. I've never met a shy twin. Because I think they walk through the world with so much confidence, because from day zero, they had an ally.
Yeah, someone else went,
yeah. Oh yeah, I agree. Oh yeah, we agree. Yeah.
You got it, bud.
Oh yeah. If you don't have a twin, find a twin. Find your twin.
Just so you know, I think that's the new opening.
As long as I say it.
Adam, you had something too?
Yeah, just kind of going back to when you guys got started. So were you able to dodge having a real job completely?
Oh, that's a great question. Dodging a real job. So the only real job that we've ever had is running our business.
That's right.
The closest I've ever had to a quote unquote real job was out of college. We both got to be interns on a film called Monkey Bone. Brendan Fraser, directed by Henry Selick.
I love that movie.
Oh, good.
What? We found the guy.
That was me,
yeah. So we have so Monkey Bone. We were brought in from our animation classes that we were taking at De Anza Junior College in Cupertino, and we worked in almost every department you can imagine.
Mostly puppet fabrication.
Yeah. And then I was hired at the end of the internship. I was hired as a PA in the model department. So all the crazy downtown in the afterlife, all that crazy stuff with the Reapers on trains and things like that. I was in charge of being there first and doing the terrible work that a PA does and opening the door for everybody. And then I had to run out and get snacks. But that's the closest thing I've had to sort of a real job. But our real job is here. This is our real job.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah,
And this is a real job, by the way. This is
without
where the hard work happens.
Yeah.
And I'm also a retired stockbroker.
Oh yeah, did we mention that?
Did I mention that?
Independently wealthy.
No, we're not. That'd be silly.
Yeah. So then, at what point in doing all this puppetry work did you realize, hey, we need to make this into a company? We need to come up with a name. So, like, at what point did that happen? Did you realize?
So I'll tell you what point that happened. Mentors are very important in the creative arts field. And we've been very fortunate to have a couple of mentors that have passed through our life. Sometimes you don't even realize you have a mentor until they're gone. And one of those people that was a mentor to us is Michael Earl. Michael Earl, if you don't know who he is, a wonderful puppeteer, a very kind soul and spirit, sadly passed away a couple of years ago. And he was doing a show and he needed someone to help build props and stuff like that. And I thought, well, I can help. I just sort of volunteered for free. We were helping make stuff, and we helped through the process of the show, and we presented it.
Always help on someone's show.
Yeah, that's another piece of good advice.
When a door opens, walk through it. That's one of Michael Earl's pieces of advice.
Yeah, when a door opens,
walk through it.
And he used to, I remember after rehearsal, we would sort of just chat in the parking lot, and he would tell me stories of the old days of Sesame Street and working with people like Karen Prell and what was it like to be on Muppets Take Manhattan and all this sort of stories. And I would just gobble all this stuff up. It's really interesting, especially if it's the world that you live in. And at the time we had a puppet company, and the puppet company was called the Los Angeles Puppet Professionals,
or LA Puppet Professionals for short.
Exactly. Because
we wanted to trip off the tongue.
Yes. So we were in LA, and he talked to us, and he said, I'm going to recommend a book to you. And the book was The Immutable Laws of Branding.
The 22 Immutable Laws of Branding.
And he's the one who really helped us think about what we do in a new way. Talking about things like, if you can't be the first in a category, create a new category. So we began to think like, well, what is our category? What is our company? So this was back in, I want to say,
2003,
4. That's when Swazzle became a brand. Swazzle, the brainchild of us, and then Anita Coulter, who is an extremely talented puppeteer. We worked with her a lot in the Bay Area. We did some shows together and lots of creative projects. And she was a good friend of ours, and we were involved.
Still is.
She's a great friend of ours, and she's we were involved together in the San Francisco Puppeteers Guild. And Swazzle was sort of a brainchild of the three of us in its inception, but it really was kicked off by those conversations with Michael Earl, because he helped us think about our business in a different way. That's why we picked a logo, and that's why we picked colors. That's why our name is 2 Z's, because Z's are interesting.
It's a puppet term,
but you don't have to know that. We don't call ourselves Swazzle Puppet Company because we want to have the creative freedom to do theater on our own shows, and maybe we're going to do some project that isn't necessarily related directly to puppets. But
so we're thinking, about names like Google. You
right.
know, it's like, okay, what's our puppet related term that's fun, and people go, oh, what's that? What's Swazzle?
Yeah. And so when we think about what our company is, we always first think about what it is to ourselves. And what it is a creative place for us to create our own work. And then from that, we end up working on other people's projects. But the thing that we love the most is our own stuff. It's a terrible thing to say.
Well,
but it's true.
I mean, doesn't always pay the bills, but
This is a great segue then into what you guys are working on now, because we'd love to hear. I know you have a new project coming up that we
have 2 projects, and we'll start with the first one and then end with the second. Can you imagine that?
All right,
I love those lists.
So you want to start with? So we have two projects that we're super excited about.
So the first one, Sorry, Adam. We're doing a puppet building web series.
Uh-oh.
Better watch your back.
So when we first started to learn how to build puppets, the feeling that we had was we couldn't find enough information. You know, especially when we started building, the internet didn't exist. We had books and resources. We became actually librarians of our Puppeteers Guild just so we could house the guild's library at our house, at our parents' house. And so we had access to all the books on the shelf. I don't even remember if anyone even checked a book out, but we would pull them off and pour through them and look at puppet building information. And so when we first started to learn kind of puppet building tricks, Sean started this puppet building blog back in the day where
Puppet 101, where I would teach stuff that I barely knew.
Yeah, about how to build a cat puppet. And what we realized is over the years is we've learned a lot of and developed a lot of interesting tips and tricks. But one of the things that I kept noticing is there are a lot of shortcuts out there for people.
Yeah, nowadays.
So nowadays, if you want to build a puppet, you can go online, you can find the patterns.
And there are some very, very good patterns out there. But
what happens is I feel like sometimes you end up creating work that feels like something we've seen. But now to go from 0 to 30 or 0 to 60, it's kind of nice to have that. But I feel like we wanted to create a web series where we actually go through the steps that we go through to build a puppet. And what we don't ever do is print out our instructions and start from there. We always start.
I wish that'd be
great. We always start from some degree of scratch. So,
and in fact, we always say when we start a puppet, whether it's our workshop or the creature shop or wherever we're building, we jokingly, sort of say among ourselves, like, boy, I sure wish we knew how to build a puppet. Like, what are we doing? How do you do this? Because the truth is, you're making something that's never been made before. And there are techniques to learn that you can lean on, but it's not like, A, B, C, this step, that step. So what we want to do is we want to arm our audience with the tools where they can take any design they're given and use the same techniques that we use to make any puppet that they're trying to imagine. And what we did for this on purpose is instead of coming up with a design ourselves, because we'd be like, here's the circle. Okay, here's the line for the mouth. Okay, good starting point. Where do the dish eyes go? There are puppets that look like puppets, right? And we wanted to stretch ourselves a little bit to really try to push us out of our comfort zone and to force ourselves to not just make the simple choices. So what we did is there's a designer and illustrator that we know. So the show that we're doing is called Swazzle Puppet Studio. It'll be on by the time this airs. First episode airs next week. And the idea of the show or when you're listening to it, episode 5 is already aired.
Exactly. It's a podcast. Or maybe we've stopped producing it by now. But the character we're building, this is Eric the Elephant. And Eric the Elephant is based on a design developed by Eric Scales, who is a really great artist and illustrator. He became a friend of ours. He used to bring his daughter to our puppet shows, and he does a lot of work for Disneyland. He used to do the watches in the park, and he did popcorn buckets, and he does all this stuff at the gallery. And what's nice about his work is when he was designing this character, he wasn't thinking, I'm making a puppet. And so what's the fun with us is our goal with this web series, Swazzle Puppet Studio, is to teach people an approach to puppet building. I remember we had a great conversation with Jane Gutnick, who's an incredible puppet builder. And I asked her when we had a chance to build some puppets for Puppet Up. One of our first sort of hires at the creature shop was building puppets for Puppet Up.
By the way, just as a quick sidebar, the very first puppet that I made at Jim Henson's creature shop for Puppet Up was played by Brian Henson in the Happy Time Murders. I was like, it's the red crab. It's the red crab.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So
credit.
Yeah, and I built this alien puppet with wild arms, and I built it, and he brought it on tour, and then he came back after one of the Puppet Up classes, and he goes, "Who built that alien puppet?" I was like, "Ugh, I did. Is it okay?" "Oh, it's great. I've been using it every show." I'm like, "Oh, good." So Jane Gutnick, I asked her, I said, Jane, she was at the creature shop still at this time. I hadn't yet been full-time at Muppets. And I said, Jane, what's the Henson stitch? He says,
Get ready, people. Here it is.
There it is.
She says, what? I said, the Henson Stitch. You heard a lot about the Henson Stitch. She goes, I don't know. I've been building puppets for 30 years. I've never heard of the Henson Stitch. And we're like, oh, we always hear about the Henson Stitch. She's like, no. And so I've heard someone describe the Henson Stitch as not a specific stitch, but an approach to stitching.
Yes.
It's the careful way you stitch. Any stitch can be as good as a Henson stitch if you do it right. And so what we want to do is use our podcast to teach the approach, not the right way to do it, but how we approach a project.
And our first one's Eric the Elephant. And then after this premieres and airs, we're going to return to Instagram and find another designer who has their own original character. And by the way, Eric is allowing us to use his character, and then the reward is he gets the puppet. When we're all done, we're going to give him the puppet. By the way, I want to just mention that our YouTube channel is Swazzle Productions. Swazzle Productions.
Like and subscribe.
Buddies. Hi.
Gucci.
Oh my gosh, I'm 13.
So anyway, Eric the Elephant. But the great thing about it, I think, is we're going to make a lot of mistakes. It's the handheld filmmaking is pretty rough and tumble, and we do not have a plan in advance. We are in the process right now of building this character.
We're in the middle of the character right now,
and it's truly the most honest approach we can represent to how we really build a puppet, which is we really at the beginning don't know how we're going to do it, and then we use tips and tricks and techniques that we've learned or developed, and hopefully impart an approach to puppet building that people can then apply to puppets or, frankly, any creative project they're involved in.
Yeah. That's kind of the approach I take a little bit too, and I try to show them the pattern making process as well.
Exactly.
And those ones tend to get a little less views for sure, but it's just such an important part of it. A lot of people, and actually I read some of the comments, because the second I bring out the clay, they think I'm going to be doing some mold making or something. Like, no, this is what I've literally seen comments. It's like, keep watching. No, don't click off right away. There's a lot more to it than you think. And really, again, and for the first patterns that I did make them available. Can I figure I know a lot of people are teachers and stuff that'll
of course. Yeah.
They don't want to make the pattern. They just want to, make their first puppet for their classroom and whatever. And they're making one, and then they're never making another one in their life.
Exactly.
So that's why I wanted to make those available for people as well. But I always tell people too, like, do this process. Do it. You learn so much by actually making the patterns yourself too.
And also.
And when you make a puppet yourself, you will never again think they cost $500.
Yeah. Nope.
Suddenly, even the ones we're selling will seem cheap.
And I love to. I'm sorry to step on that you're using character designs that aren't done by puppeteers.
That's right.
We joke about this with Chase Woolner all the time, is that he was like, once you build a puppet, all your cartoon characters start looking like puppets. And the idea of, if you get hired by a commercial client, or even if you're working on a show and someone else has designed the characters, they're not thinking about the weight of the character or how you need to make sure,
or the size of the mouth in relation to the head, or
and how comfortable the puppeteer is going to be. So it's great that you're working from that outside angle, so that again you could kind of build the understanding and work through the process of maybe tweaking the design a little bit. And it's not because you're saying, I don't like this design, but it has to be part of the integrity of the final puppet tool that you're building.
And that's gonna be part of this show. Like, one thing we keep saying is, somehow we're gonna do it this trunk. I don't know what we're doing with the trunk. We keep going back, like, I don't know what we're gonna do with the trunk. He's got a trunk. We got to figure it out.
He does have a nice looking head, though.
Ooh,
Spoiler. No, it's already out by the time this is on.
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
It's further along, hopefully, than this. Otherwise, we're in big trouble.
That's great.
Very cool. So what's the other project you got going?
Oh, great. Well, we ran out of time.
Boy,
we really chattered on a bit.
So the second project, which we're very excited about, is a collaboration with two people that we've collaborated with before. One is an amazing artist and designer. Her name is Andrea Coleman. Her design aesthetic is so unique. People should look for Andrea Coleman art on Instagram. You'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the other up in the show notes. Yeah, for sure.
Great. Put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
The other person we're collaborating with is one of our longtime collaborators, Artie Esposito. puppeteer, puppet builder, and really what we have figured out is the next step in our career, and is to continue to do what we've done, which is to push our own projects. So we have this really, I think, a cool idea. This is actually the first time we've talked about it outside of our workshop. We've been working on it for a year, and we're going to show you some stuff now. Hopefully it's as exciting as we think.
So if you're driving in the car, get onto YouTube. And,
get on YouTube right now. This is the visual. This is the visual portion of the show. But I want to show you some of Andrea's artwork at first, some of her original characters that originally drew us to her. Now, Andrea Coleman, we worked with her at the Creature Shop working on Dark Crystal, but that's not where she started. She started in Disney Animation as a background painter. She made fashion handbags for a while, and she always made these really weird leather characters look like this. So I got a little bucket of them. Here's one of them here.
Oh, wow.
It's like really
all handmade, all stuffed, all hand painted.
Very, very distinct, characters.
And what's nice about them is they are dimensional and not necessarily puppet, but they live in the real world. So our first collaboration with Andrea and Artie using this sort of aesthetic was a short we did called Hugger Mucker Pier. And some of these characters appeared in that as puppet versions of them.
It was a development short. We got
a fair chunk of change to make this. And we wanted to bring her characters to life in 3 dimensions as puppets, but we knew that we couldn't necessarily translate these characters without having some element of animation. So what we developed was this system where we made these little rod puppets. Here, I'll show you the original. This is her original character, Marcus Mayhem. He's the star of the first project that we did together. And so we built these little rod puppets version of Marcus. You'll notice that he has this beautiful hand-painted face, and this one doesn't have any face at all. He's like a little Milano cookie or something. Mm-hmm. And we put tracking marks on it. And for the 3-minute short, we had animation being done by an outside company. And so it really created this aesthetic that was amazing. That short was well liked. It got passed around everywhere. It got us meetings in high places and came very close to being an actual show on an actual network with a real audience watching it. And then, like these things do, it all fell apart at the last minute, which is perfectly fine because it moved us on to the next thing.
So the next thing that we've been working on. So originally, Artie had this idea. And it was the most serendipitous thing. This is at the Henson holiday party. We were just like sitting around talking about the year. And he goes, I have an idea for a project. I want to do a Christmas project about Krampus. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Krampus, this kind of Christmas time demon of the old world that is Santa's opposite. He punishes the bad children. And wouldn't you know it, but Andrea literally pulled out of her bag a Krampus sculpture that she had made totally on her own. It's like, look at this guy I made. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? So here's our idea. It's called Merry Christmas Krampus, and it's going to be a children's book. But the way that we're going to make the book is because we are puppet people. We're going to fabricate all the puppets. We're going to make all of these model sets. We're going to do digital face replacements. We're going to photograph it, and we're going to publish a book. A lot of our time is spent pitching shows at various places, and you spend all this time working on this document, and you write the character descriptions, and you draw the characters, and you may even make a sample puppet, and you bring it in, and everyone says, no. You know, the odds are they're not going to get the show. And then what do you have left? A really nice PDF. So our idea is maybe eventually we'll be able to pitch this project as a show or a holiday special. But right now, we want to make the thing. I want the book so I can read it to my son every Christmas. And even if nothing else happens except this book, I feel like this is one of those green lights that we need to be following. So in order to pull this off, we've never done this before. We're doing a Kickstarter. Yes, we're doing a Kickstarter. The Kickstarter isn't launched yet. Maybe by the time you're listening to this, it will be. It's going to launch the last week of November. We already have a pre-launch page up, merrychristmaskrampus.com. If anyone's interested, they can start to see some of the work we've done so far. But I would like to share it with your audience.
Yeah,
Did you
no,
guys
definitely.
see some
We'll,
stuff?
we'll share it on our.
No, we'll show you right now.
No,
we have.
we'll show you right now.
I thought
yeah,
you meant the
we'll
links
design.
and stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So these are some of the characters that this is. And bring Santa over here. This is Krampus and Santa Claus. This is, we kind of figure out scale for the set. We built these little foam core versions of them.
And you can see Andrea's unique, line work and style and characterization.
And because this is a book, we need to have different poses. We sculpted and cast with armature wires the figures. So this is
much like you would a stop motion puppet. But so this is Krampus coming along here.
Krampus does not have a face, but he will, because he'll be posed. He's posable, and he'll have a face that can be added in post. I'm not going to pose it because I'm afraid I'll take the arm off.
But there's Krampus, and then I love Santa Claus. Andrea Coleman does all the
His hat's coming off.
all the painting.
Yeah, these characters. Santa has this beautiful felted beard. He's going to have a mouth. Right now, his mustache is just pinned on.
Oh wow.
But that's all needle felted. That beard is needle felted.
So we're building these little model sets. We have, everything, every little tiny thing. It's almost like we want to make a holiday viewmaster in a way, where you can just kind of, as a kid, it's always fun to pour over a book and look at every detail. Yeah. And we're putting in every detail. Bring the gingerbread house.
So I'm very proud of this. This is the gingerbread house I made. You can see.
And much like our development short that we did, Andrea designed all the characters, and then I did all the sets designs. And just like we did the set design for our short, it was very rough first impression. This is just a weird angle. And then taking those and turning them into 3D kind of helps create this kind of bent aesthetic, this wacky world these characters exist in.
Yeah,
grab the cuckoo clones.
Yeah, the beauty of non-client work. We figured that because Santa Claus is an international, he's got to be around the world. He has to know what time it is. So we thought it'd be fun that when he has, how people have like London, Paris, New York, Los Angeles, we figured his version would be cuckoo clocks. This will be like, this is the Los Angeles clock. Yeah.
So cool.
And then this would be like the Moscow clock.
Oh, that's perfect.
This would be the Tokyo clock.
Yeah, all different landscapes and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
So the story of the book that, the reason why we feel like this is going to be a good Kickstarter is, first of all, we're putting everything into it, as people do for their Kickstarters. But one of the premiums that people will be able to get, and again, if you register at merrychristmaskrampus.com, there's like a sign up for updates. And one of the premiums people will be able to get is the book itself.
Right.
So that's our goal is, sometimes I ask myself, well, why would I give to a Kickstarter? Like, the reason why we haven't done a Kickstarter before is because I go, we do shows on our own. Other people, I'm not gonna pay to do your show. You pay to do your show.
Exactly.
And so we know, I feel that way about Kickstarter. So I'm not going to do that kind of Kickstarter. If I'm going to do a Kickstarter and I'm going to make my dream come true, then I better give people a trophy. They better have the thing on their shelf. They better get the doll, get the book, get the whatever. And so ultimately, if you give at a certain level, you'll be getting the book. And then if you give at other levels, you'll be able to get some of the handmade characters. One premium is going to be your caricature as an elf. Santa has these little elves that are going to be around this amazing. We're going to do this amazing layout where it's above ground, where it's a cutaway of Santa's workshop, and below ground, where Krampus lives in his crazy world. And all the elves, if the Kickstarter goes according to plan, all the elves will be representatives of people who gave at a certain level. And then if you give it another level,
can make themselves into an elf.
Yeah, if you get another level, you'll be able to get some of the figures and stuff. Anyway,
I'm gonna just hold on a second, because I'm gonna grab the book. I want to read you guys a little bit of the poem that we started to write, if you would indulge me. Hang on.
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
And while he's gone, I will show you the London clock.
Yeah, there you go. That's cool.
It's
Big
Big
would
Ben,
love
as
to be
we
an
call
elf.
it.
Yeah.
Tiny Ben.
Cameron, I think we would make good elves. We already have elfish looks to
I
us.
would say
think.
so.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, like and subscribe.
So most of the text was written by Artie and Sean.
So what we did, and then Patrick did storyboards, and based on those storyboards, we figured out what sets we're going to make. For our Kickstarter, what we're making is Santa's house interior with Santa and Krampus and all of the surrounding props and set decoration. We have a professional photographer who actually shot our short that we mentioned, and he shot all of our puppets.
Yeah, his name is Matt Schleicher. He's amazing. What's great about him is we've worked with him on a lot of. We did the pilot. We did the Cartoon Network with him. Little Big Awesome, which is a puppet thing we've done for Amazon. We built puppets for. He shot that. And what's great, and you guys will know this as puppet people, if you can find a DP who understands the needs of a puppeteer, then everyone's life is easier. He is able to create.
Absolutely.
Don't let them go.
Yeah, don't let him go. And we never do. We never do.
We always use him. So we're going to do a professional photograph that will be the kind of like the image that will hopefully drive people to
it'll be indicative of the look of the book.
So you guys ready for a little story time?
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
Follow the snowflakes to the top of the globe. Look for the reindeer, white beard, and red robe. In Santa's toy shop, the elves are all working, but deep underground, something scary is lurking. Krampus. Brooding, he paces, quite sure he has missed some bad boys and girls to add to his list. Who's Krampus? Who's Krampus? Who's Krampus, you ask? He's me, Santa's equal, and I've got my own task. I bundle up sticks, I dig up the coal for bad kids who lied, fought, hit, yelled, and stole. Now I hold a strong grudge, 'cause Kris Kringle won't budge. He ignores my advice, says every kid's nice. That jolly old boy thinks gives each one a toy. Why does he get to be both jury and judge? Here we are once again on Christmas Eve night, toys, stick, and coal loaded for our lengthy flight. Crack went the whip, up went the sleigh, and just as the northern lights faded away, he started in with, everyone's good. Oh, they'll all get toys, as everyone should. I'll fill all their stockings with candy and stuff. No sticks or coal, Krampus. Enough is enough. Enough was enough. Enough Christmassy fluff. Some kids are too rough. Some won't share their stuff. I just couldn't take much more Santa Claus guff. On and on he kept rambling. It's always that way. So I pushed that fat elf out the back of his sleigh. And the story takes off from there.
And what's really great about the story is Krampus is going to bring sticks and coal to the bad little kids. And the worst of the worst is Randy Ruckus. And Randy is a terrible kid, misbehaves in every way you can imagine. And he ends up hopping in the sleigh with Krampus, and unbeknownst to Krampus, and he ends up on his journey with him. And of course, he makes Krampus's night a nightmare. Yeah, exactly. Krampus gets to see what the worst of the worst is like in action. And then it's a Christmas story, and so there's a nice sort of sweet message in it. And the message in the story is every kid is good. Every kid has good in them, and even the bad kids have good. And
Santa Claus shows in his snow globe all of the good and sweet things that Randy did during the night that Krampus missed. He helped find a lost toy. He covered up a child that was cold. Then he fed a goldfish.
When Krampus returns back to the North Pole, drops Randy off, and all the, I can't believe I had this kid with me the whole time. He realizes, I never gave Randy a present for Christmas. I never gave Randy a present. And that's when Santa Claus, do you want to read that part? It's a good one.
Sure.
It's the thing the whole story hangs on, I think. That's when Santa Claus surprises Krampus with something.
He says, I forgot Randy Ruckus. So Santa, he smiles and pulls from his coat a small piece of paper with a handwritten note. Dear Santa, please.
Sean always cries at this part. You want me to read it?
I'll read it.
Okay.
Please, Santa, please help me, because I'm trying to be just as good as I can. It's not easy for me. I'm different than others, and it's hard to guess if I'm making a pal or just making a mess. I'm really not mean. I just sometimes pretend when all that I really want is a friend. I heard you know Krampus. He's different like me. Can I meet him someday? Love, your friend, Randy. And it's at that moment that Krampus realizes that all boys and girls have some good and bad in them. And he decides to turn a sleigh around and give everybody presents for Christmas.
Anyway, it's a very sweet story. It's funny, it's silly, it has a really great aesthetic, and it has a really touching holiday message.
We're very excited. We're very excited about it.
Yeah, it's the thing that is driving us right now. It's the thing that we're most hopefully enough people will see value in it and want to give at certain levels once the Kickstarter is up and running. But they can register now and
MerryChristmasKrampus.com. Get updates, exclusive updates.
Yeah.
Kickstarter goes live November 2018. And if this is airing sometime in November, December, give now.
Very cool. Oh man, it's gonna be a really cool project. But I think as we start to wrap up, we so appreciate your time and talking with us. It's been so good. We've been following your stuff for a really long time, so it's been wonderful to get a chance to meet and to talk. But as we wrap up in the spirit of Jim Krupa, we were wondering if you guys had a crazy or a favorite story from set or on stage of just something that didn't go right that gave you some puppet tears.
It's funny because I know you guys asked that question. In my puppeteer story, I would just go back to the story I told before about how Jim Henson's passing had such an impact on us and on an impact on the world. I can't think of a greater puppeteer story than the passing of someone who was such a creative genius, such a gentle person, collaborator, funny, creative,
and such an influence.
Yeah.
Right.
One thing that's interesting is every project has its challenges. And this sounds like I'm being sarcastic when I say this, but I'm not. Because I know the Puppeteers it's the name of your podcast. It's part of what the show's about. It's those stories that everyone loves and kind of sink their teeth into. I can't think of one. And not that there haven't been moments on set or in projects where there is that level of frustration.
Every project has its own challenges.
But I can't even think of one that would justify the name Puppeteers. There's been challenges on projects. I think what a puppeteer is, when you are crying puppet tears, is you're growing as an artist, you're learning, and you are creating. And I feel like those moments, the reason why they don't stick is because something good came out of it. I think about a project we were working on with this crazy deadline, this last minute thing, this puppet that we were going to be shooting overseas. It wasn't ready in our shop when it left our shop. It wasn't ready in the hotel room when we arrived on set, and it wasn't ready on set, but it worked for the shot and it did what it needed to do. And I think about that moment and I think, well, we pulled it off. It happened. The project came together. The client and everybody liked the work. It wasn't because we lucked out. It's because we had to troubleshoot and make it happen. But I feel like that moment happens on every project. There's always that time where you go, how are we going to see our way through this? How are we going to get past this part? Am I going to deal with this person? And then when the whole thing is over, you kind of go, oh, I'm actually kind of glad that we had that moment. It made it really hard. It made it really challenging, but it made me learn how to work with someone in a different way, or it made me finally listen and develop a new technique,
or it forces you to grow as an artist, to become a better puppeteer.
Oh, but the real story? The real story?
Uh-huh.
I don't have one really, sorry.
Okay. So how can what's the best way for people to follow you?
Great. So we have, we're all over the place as far as social media goes. We have a website, Swazzle.com. You can check us out there. Also check us out on Instagram. The Instagram handle is
Swazzle Puppet Studio.
And then also we are nominally on Twitter.
That just mirrors our Instagram.
It's a dumping ground for Instagram because I hate Twitter because I don't understand it. And then we're on Facebook, but really Instagram is the place to go.
Yep.
I love it. It's a visual medium. It's where we share our work first. And then our website is where you want to go if you want to have a puppet built, if you want to learn about other services our company provides.
We also have our YouTube channel, which is Swazzle Productions. So you can find the new show we talked about there. We'll be posting, Kickstarter updates there as well, and all sorts of fun and fancy free puppet silliness.
And then the site again for Krampus.
So the site for Krampus is merrychristmaskrampus.com. Krampus, Krampus.
Right now you can go there. You can either register to get updates, or there'll be a link that will send you to the Kickstarter page, depending on when you listen to this podcast. Maybe you're listening to this podcast and you've just read the book to your son or daughter.
That would be amazing. I would love that story. If that's the case, email us and tell us you did that.
Mom.
Mom.
Awesome.
Well,
yeah.
Patrick and Sean Johnson, thank you so much.
Thanks for
joining
coming
us
on, guys. Thanks for your
Puppeteers,
time.
and,
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
This
Thank
was
you.
great. Look forward to having you back for a part 2 sometime.
Oh,
Thanks.
definitely.
We would love to come back.
Wonderful.
All right.
We'll try to have
All
some tears by then.
right. Thanks. See ya.
Thank you guys.
All right, cool. Great to meet you guys in person.